Hi peoples, it's me Gabrielle, aka your girl fabgogg, back again with another video. Today we are going to be talking about my ART ICKS, but instead of critiquing other people's art, we are going to be critiquing my old art because I love ripping my old art apart because it was bad. If you like the video, hit that like button, and if you want to see more videos like this, make sure to subscribe. Yes! Number 1, drawing on a tiny canvas. For some reason, I just didn't know that I needed a big enough canvas if I wanted nice and crispy art. Nice, high quality, high resolution art. I didn't know that you needed a lot of pixels to do that. So I would draw on very, very small canvases. For example, this one was one of my first digital drawings that I attempted to do when I got my actual like Wacom drawing tablet on Corel Painter. I don't use Corel anymore, but I use Photoshop. However, the size of this canvas, it was 800 by 600 pixels, which is absolutely puny and pathetic, because now I draw at least 5,000 by 5,000, like at least. I know smaller, I'd be drawing big and it'd be taking up a lot of space on my computer, but my art is crispy as a result. You could zoom in, there's a lot of little details and it looks fantabulous. So that is definitely something that I wish I learned and got past when I started doing digital art, but I didn't, and it's fine because it's funny to look back at now. Number 2 is putting random unneeded highlights everywhere. I don't know why I did this. Maybe because I wanted my art to stand out more from like a background or something, and I also was very used to drawing very dark, but I just put so many unnecessary highlights in my art in places that don't even make sense, places where there's supposed to be shadows and there's light seeping through. That doesn't make any sense. I used to do that also in my traditional art. Everywhere I would put the white highlight pen literally all over my art with no rhyme or reason, and it was not a good look. I thought it looked good, but again, I look back at it now and I think it's silly, and less is more when it comes to using white highlights, that's for sure. Number 3 is quite silly. So I over-rendered hair a lot. I would draw like every single strand of hair when I didn't need to do that. I didn't portion it up into sections. I just shaded every single line of hair and I put the most dumb highlights on it, and it just didn't make sense and it didn't look good. And compared to the rest of the drawing, it didn't make any sense. I don't know why I decided that that was a good idea to do. Drawing hair is not that deep, and I don't need to be that deep unless I'm going like super hyper realistic. Okay, then I'll put individual strands and stuff, but I'll still section up those pieces of hair into clumps and portions and part the hair in a way that seems natural and that also matches the style of the drawing, and it doesn't seem like overkill when the rest of the drawing is super simple. And don't get me wrong, like there are a bunch of stylistic choices you could take, especially with like coloring, maybe the hair like one solid color and then having everything else be super hyper realistic. Like that could be a really cool stylistic choice that you choose to do if it's done right. And I was not trying to do that. That was not my intention, and it just happened and it looked like absolute dookie. Not a proud moment, but it's very prevalent in all of my old artwork, and it's fine. It's okay. Those darn dumb highlights. Ugh. And to go along with those stupid highlights, I had the muddiest of colors. I used the same 2 colors for highlights and shadows in most of my art between 2017 all the way to like, I think I used those up until 2021 or 22, to be honest. It was this muddy purple color, like grayish purple, and then a yellow, just because they were opposite on the color wheel. And I was like, oh, you know, if there's a warm shadow, you gotta have a cold light highlight, or you know, vice versa. And while that is true, I mean, I don't be following that all the time because, you know, I just do whatever I see fits and looks good and what fits in the atmosphere of whatever I'm drawing. But I would use these 2 colors for literally everything. It didn't matter. And it made my art look so muddy because I used the multiply layer, and there's nothing wrong with using the multiply layer for when you're using blending layers, but it just muddled everything down. Now I use this rustish, murky red color. That's my go-to, which is not very different from the purple, but I also use a different blending mode. I use linear burn instead of multiply, and I usually only use multiply if I'm doing like the blushing drawing on skin. And by using the linear burn blending mode in conjunction with color burn, like a softer brush to put in those color burn moments, I guess, with an overlay highlight, it makes it a lot more eye-catching and it makes it a lot more cohesive. And it just doesn't look as loopy and gross, I guess. It doesn't look as flat and it doesn't look as like a ball of wadded up paper that's wet and gross. My go-tos are that reddish color, and then for highlights now I've turned to a more orangish color, but it really depends on the scene. Sometimes I'll use a very light blue color, or I'll still go back to that yellow that I used way back when, but I try now not to only use those colors, even though I always find myself shading with that color and I have to get out of that habit. But I at least use different gradients and different blending modes to change it and manipulate it in a way where it doesn't look sad. Now, last but certainly not least on my ART ICKS list is using the Symmetry tool. I have mixed opinions about the Symmetry tool. So if I'm drawing architecture, I want it to look symmetrical. Like front-facing architecture, I want it to look symmetrical. I need it to look perfect, you know, because it's architecture. Architecture needs to be stable. It can't be leaning and it can't be funky looking. So in that respect, it's understandable to use a Symmetry tool, but for something natural and not, I mean, I guess humans are man-made. Not man-made, they're woman-made, slay, but I guess man-made too. It's a partnership kind of thing. Anyway, I digress. Faces are more natural. Faces are not symmetrical in nature. No one has a perfectly symmetrical face. You know, one side is going to be lower than the other. It's going to be a little bit lopsided, and that's natural. That's fine. That is with everyone's faces. I don't want my art to look perfectly symmetrical, so when I see people using a Symmetry tool, I understand it could be for convenience, but like, if you're gonna, okay, I'll go back to criticizing myself. If you're gonna use the Symmetry tool, at least like move the pupils back after you turn the Symmetry tool off to not look like they're going in two opposite directions. Because yes, eyes do that, but if they're looking at something, it looks wrong. Something about it just looks wonky. It's giving Uncanny Valley. It's just not my thing. I just don't. People may argue, oh, it's just my art style or whatever. Who am I to judge at the end of the day? But I think it'll look a lot better if you have it more natural and not 100% perfect. But that's what the liquefy tool is for, where you flip your canvas back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, so that you can make it not so heavily lopsided. Because I know a lot of my art, before I figured out how to use the liquefy tool, looked very funky, because I was also like not using the Symmetry tool, because again, I didn't like it. There was a little period of time where I did use it. That ended very quickly because I was like, okay, this is not my art style. This is not jiving with me and it's not good. But after I found out about the liquefy tool, I saw improvement in my art. Of course, it's not going to be perfect and it's not going to be perfectly symmetrical, but faces aren't perfectly symmetrical. So I was fine with that. And I honestly like that more natural look because it's more realistic, even though my art style isn't 100% realistic. It's like stylized realism. So I wanted to have those raw moments. All in all, Symmetry tool kind of gross for me when drawing people and like faces, but very handy for when you're drawing architecture. That's my opinion on that. Also, use the liquefy tool. Don't be scared to use it because it's good and it helps 100%. So yeah, those were my ART ICKS from my past art that I have done. Whether or not I use this ART ICKS term correctly, I don't care. I was just using it for clickbait. At the end of the day, draw whatever you want, draw however you want, but if you want to improve, you take some of these tips into consideration, because Lord knows my art used to be hard to look at and I thought it was good and it wasn't. I'm not saying that my art is 100% perfect now, but I've come a long way. I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. Let me know other video ideas that you'd like me to share my opinions on. I will see you guys in the next video. Ciao, ta-ta, toodles.